Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to talk about the part and part design workbenches and the standard part, what the purpose of the standard part, and then the model tree, how to work with the model tree to build models in FreeCAD. So let's discuss about the part and part design workbenches. Okay, so we got this part design workbench which is I'm in right now, and then if you go and click here, then now you are in the part design workbench. Okay, now, I have seen in forums related to FreeCAD, people have been asking about, hey, why do we have these two? And the questions are, do we have to combine them together when you create models? So my uh, research that I have done is to date is you can use them independently. You don't need to combine them. If you are comfortable building model just using part workbench, you can do that, right? Like, okay, I can do, let's say these are the primitives you have, so I can take a primitive, and then we have our famous solid cube, and then I can create a cylinder. I can go to the Boolean operations and say I pick one on the first shape and the second shape is the cylinder, and I make a difference and I say apply. Now you have created a model using Boolean operations, and this is my model. Okay, so I did not go to part workbench to do that, or the part design workbench to do that. I did this model just in part workbench. So just get that into your mind. Now you can technically combine them together, and I have done. I mean, you probably have seen my videos where I have combined part and part design together to create complex model. Now you don't have to, but you can if you need to. So that's the distinction between part and part design workbenches. Now in this is a model I created, a very simple model. So this is an outdoor table I built some time back, and the model was entirely done within the part workbench. I did not use any of the part design features in the in that workbench to build this model. So entirely built in part workbench. Now eh, and then how you do that is you have these primitives. You can start with them. There are some more primitives available here. You can start with them, and then you go and do these these operations. So this menu is, you could go to the toolbars and you can see part tools and then Boolean operations. So with combining the primitives and doing operations with the part tools and the Boolean operations, you can do complex models. Now there are limitations, but you can build good models with this just entirely using part workbench. Now I'm going to part design workbench, and I have built models using that too. So if you go here, this is a cell phone holder I entirely built within the part design workbench. Now you can see the tree. I started with a body, did bunch of operations, start with a sketch, then you pad it, and then you pocket it, and then you fillet it, and ultimately I get this rather simple model that is entirely built using part design workbench. So just keep that in mind. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is this guy. This is called the part or the standard part. Now, this is available in all workbenches. Now, if I go to view and go to toolbar, if I unclick this structure, which is the toolbar that contains that, it will disappear, right? So I can go back and make it active again, so it will appear. So now if I go to part as well, part workbench, you will see that it is appearing here as well. So if I go to draft, let's see, okay, if I go to draft, it will show up there as well. Okay, so yeah, you can see it here. So now what's the purpose of this component? Okay, so that's what we want to talk about. Let me switch off this and come back to the part design. So what is the purpose of this part or the standard part? The main thing is it is just a container. It standalone can't do anything, but if you put stuff into that, then it has some meaning. So let me demonstrate that. So I create a part. Now let's say I can demonstrate that this is not you can't do any operations for this one. So how do I do that? How do I demonstrate that? Let's create a sketch here, and let's say I'm going to create a simple rectangle and close it out, and that automatically created a body. So that body is actually part of this model tree. Then also this part is also part of this model tree. Okay, now let's see if I can grab this sketch and drag and drop here. Okay, so I drag and drop into the part. It's no longer in the body, it's in the part. Okay, now let's see whether I can since this is active, this part is active, let's see whether I can pad it. Now it says cannot use selected object. Selected object must belong to an active body. Now this is what is important. So this is not even though this is it's called, it says it has to be a body. Okay, so this is not a body, therefore it won't do anything. So now if I go and drag it down here, okay, it somehow didn't do that first time. Let's try to do it again. Let's okay, now if I do and try to pad it, it is doing it. So essentially what part is just a container. Now what I can do here is I can drag and drop inside this. Now this part contains body. Now what you could do is you can have multiple bodies inside a part. Okay, it's just a it's a container, as I said. Now this is another body. So what I will do is I will create a sketch inside that. So let me, I need to activate this guy, and then I'm going to create a body. Let's say I'm going to create let's say circle maybe, or first start with a circle and then let's pad this guy. So since it is inside an active body, I should be able to pad it. Okay, so now I got a solid and a rectangular solid and a circular solid. Now, or cylinder, I would say. Now what I can do is, if I go and say transform and try to move, they move together. Okay, so that means what I'm doing is here is actually moving the container. The container is the part. Okay, I'm moving the part, and everything inside that container called the part, or I can rename it, let's say container. And now inside this container everything moves together. So now, do I need to have this in models? If you're making a rather simple model with few bodies, you probably don't even need it. Okay, and that's my experience. Now, if you have multiple bodies and you want to have a proper structure in the tree, you probably will have multiple bodies and multiple containers, and each of these containers either can be moved independently, or they would be, you have a better meaningful structure to your model. Now, of course, in assembly this will be probably be more useful. Okay, so I have named this file as model tree because I want to give some tips on the model tree. Okay, so every CAD package has a tree, and the purpose of the tree is to show the keep a track of the evolving model. Okay, so let's create a body here, and let's say I want to create a sketch inside this body. So I pick the body and I go and click on the sketch. I'm going to pick XY plane, and I'm going to create my the usual rectangle, and I'm not going to constrain it. I'm going to get out of it. So this has the sketch in this body. So okay, let's say I want to create another body for this case. So I'm going to pick on the model tree and create the second body. So we got two bodies, and I'm going to say I'm going to create another sketch in this one. So if I click on this one, you will see that this body has this white box around it. Okay, what's the purpose of that? So this is showing that this body is active, and this is not active. So if I go here, I don't have this white box around it, right? But I have a white box here. So now if I double click on this, now who's active here? This guy is active, this guy is not active. So now the when I click on the sketch, and if I try to create a let's say if I try to create a sketch here, let's see where that sketch going to be. Okay, go to say just escape for sake of it. So that sketch is automatically going to put onto the active body. It's not going to put onto the body, even though you selected this body, it's not going to put it, it's going to put it into the active. So make sure you always, the body you are going to work on and do operations on, make sure you activate that, otherwise it won't work. Okay, so that's another tip. Now let's say I want to activate this guy, and I want to create the sketch. So since this is active now, the sketch will be inside this. Okay, so I'm going to create this, and maybe I'm going to create a circle, something like this. Now that sketch is inside this body. Okay, now let's say I want to create a pad operation here. Okay, it says cannot use select object, you must be active body. Okay, so that's what it is. If you see this message, it's because you did not have your body active. But if I do pick this guy and try to do a pad on it, it works because it is already active. So now I can do the same thing here. I will activate this body and then click on it. Now you will see a rectangle showing up. Okay, there you go. So that's the rectangle. Now so that's the part of the active and the inactive bodies. Now say if I want to kind of I don't want to see this anymore, I'm going to press space bar to dissipate. It is not deleted, it is just removed from the view. So if I go back and click on this guy and spacebar again, it will appear. So it's just a quick way of, if you have multiple bodies and your view is kind of hindered by so many bodies, you can remove them by pressing the spacebar. Now here is another thing with the FreeCAD. Okay, now you can see this pad, uh, the pad 001 is actually, it's the body and it's kind of down here, right? Let's say I want to do some let's do some operation here. So since this is body is active, I want to do a chamfer here. So let's say, yeah, so I'm okay with that. So I'm going to do another chamfer here. I need to pick the edge and do that. So yeah, so you got two shampoos. Okay, now you can see that this, I mean, I call it chamfers, but they're fillets. Okay, so the fillet, the last fillet is active, everything is kind of gray, right? So the reason for that is FreeCAD has this concept called single cumulative solid, okay, for a one body. This is the single cumulative solid, means all the ops are kind of added, so this carries the final op. Okay, so this is the final body it has. So this is the single cumulative solid for this body. That's what it means. Okay, now what's the implications of that? So let's do I got out of, I deactivate the body, the second one, so I have the first one only. Now what is the significance of that, right? Let's say I try to create another solid into this body. So let's say I do something like this. Let's say I'm going to create a sketch and say okay, and I will create two circles here and another circle here, and I'm not going to constrain. I have this two here, two separate sketches. Okay, two, I mean, they're the same sketch has two circles in it. Okay, now I want to pad this. Let's say I want to pad this guy. What happens? I say I'm okay. So it says pad results has multiple solid. This is not supported at this time. So that, what that means is, I have to get out of here. What that means is you are in violation of the FreeCAD principle, which is the single cumulative solid for a one body. So you try to violate that, it did not like it, it did not allow that. So always for a single body you will see a single solid. You can't have multiple solid in a single body. So that's another principle that you have to keep in mind, and as you develop your model. So if you have to have multiple bodies, you have multiple objects in your model, then you have to create separate bodies. Okay, and the next concept, so I'm going to kind of delete this guy off, and let's activate this guy, and let's do let's say I want to move this body. So I'm going to say transform blah blah, I'm going to move it here, and I'm going to say let's do okay, doesn't somehow click there. Okay, we got that done. So something like this. Okay, so let's do this. Now there are a couple of ways of, I want to do like a boolean operation. Okay, now I have this body active, the first body active. I'm going to say pick on the second one and then go to the boolean and say so I have fuse, I have the fuse, I have the cut option, I have the common option. I can do either one of them. So okay, so that's one way of doing a boolean operation inside the part design, what happens is you kind of folded that two bodies into one, and now you have one single body. Yeah, the second body I created, it kind of inside this, but it had the operation done. Now it's kind of inside this body. So still have one body. So uh, to to be fair with the FreeCAD, we did not violate the cumulative single solid principle. Okay. Now I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to undo that one, so for the sake of it right now, and then I'm going to make it recompute it so that it will be active. So now I'm going to show another operation, different way of doing this. I'm going to go to part, and now I have two bodies, so I can pick on both the bodies, and I can do like a boolean operation inside the part. Okay, I came out of the part design and I'm in the part. Now this is where I talked to you earlier about, hey, combining the part and part design, that talk I gave you short while ago. This is what it is. Okay, so you got one body and you got another body. So I'm going to say, I'm going to the difference maybe. See, okay, so we got the same thing, we got the different. Okay, now if I go out, see, you don't have a, your body is kind of messed up. You have two bodies, but you have a cut operation. Now as long as if you continue to work in the part workbench, this is fine. But if, let's say, if you want to get back into part design workbench and continue to do stuff, now you're kind of okay, here is where you kind of get stuck, right? Now I don't have bodies, and then you can say, okay, cats is said there have to be some bodies. I don't see what would happen. So let's try to do operation on this, see whether it works. So I'm going to pick this guy because it is not, there's no active deactive because there's no body here, but I'm going to try to do tries to demonstrate by doing a fillet, or let's say do a fillet. So here is again, so that message comes again saying it's not an active body, you have to pick active body. So what do you do here? Now, my method, if I go this route, if I take this route, I would create a body and I will drag and drop this guy into this. Now, yeah, you have this tree, but this is inactive, so you can kind of shut it off here. It's not going to do anything, but you got this much. And now if you try to go and do a simple fillet, you can do it. Now here is the downside to this, right? In our FreeCAD, we always like to build parametric models. We like to do stuff, we try to change the the move operations we did previously, try to change it and try to get the final model to kind of a whatever the changes you make on the upper level of the tree, you want to flow it down to the lower level. Now in this situation, it's going to be a little bit tricky. Okay, so that's something that you need to be careful, and you have to plan it well before you kind of go this route. So I just wanted to show you that because there are options available for you to try if you want to go and do something like what I did, where I combined the part design and part both and created the solid. So this is what I wanted to kind of get to you guys on this tutorial. It's just a quick tutorial, but hopefully this is kind of helpful because we go through what the part design, what the difference is, what the standard part means, and the overall model tree. So if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. That would really help me, and that I'll really appreciate it. And if you like it, please subscribe. Thank you.